Oh, yes, my friends. I don't say lights, camera, action for our next feature because it's in your front room. I could say curtains, carpet, and by the way, a takeaway meal on your lap because it's time to say good morning and welcome back to Van Connor, one of the country's top film critics who guides us through his Freeview film recommendations on your telly box for the weekend. Good morning, Van. How the devil are you? And you probably can't talk about it, but I understand late last night you saw the new Batman offering.
I did indeed. I know I can't talk about it, unfortunately, Mr. Ross. I've got a couple days left where I'm under the pain of my own signature for the time being. But, you know, there will be tons and tons to talk about with it next week, I'm sure. And we did get to say, you know, Zoe Kravitz in there, fulfilling the legacy of the great Eartha Kitt and Julie Newmar, keeping the cat suit of the Catwoman alive.
And Michelle Pfeiffer and Halle Berry as well, of course. Now, let's turn to your first recommendation. I love this film when it came out. I also love the sequel. It's Brendan Fraser as the Mummy Hunter in The Mummy, ITV4, this evening, I think 6:35.
Yeah, this one, we all tend to forget this one. The Mummy was not expected to do well when it opened and only did so because it was accidentally counter-programming for the release of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So when you went to the multiplex and Star Wars was full, you went next door and saw The Mummy. So The Mummy made a fortune because of that. And it's actually a pretty good Indiana Jones-like romp. So basically, taking the sort of licensed, royalty-free Mummy story that Universal themselves had parlayed in the 20s and 30s, and basically reviving it as more of an Indiana Jones style adventure horror romp, starring a peak of his fame, Brendan Fraser, alongside a then yet to really break out Rachel Weisz. He's the, as you say, Mummy Hunter, the adventurer. She's the scientist / archaeologist, and John Hanna's along for the ride as the con artist brother, and they're off in search of the lost city of Hamunaptra and the Book of the Dead, which they don't realize has the ability, and wouldn't you know it, unfortunately, the tendency to revive the long dead mummy Imhotep, who has designs on bringing back the 10 plagues of Egypt, and all in the pursuit of reviving his long lost love, Ankh-Sunyamun. I've got a clip for you of Brendan Fraser having been cleaned up for the first time, and Rachel Weisz struggling to contain her enthusiasm for his new look.
It's ITV4, it's this evening, 6:35. It's The Mummy.
Mr. O'Connell, can you look me in the eye and guarantee me that this isn't all some kind of a flim-flam? Because if it is, I am warning you, I will feel...
You're warning me? Lady, let me put it this way. My whole damn garrison believed in this so much that without orders, they marched halfway across Libya and into Egypt to find that city. And when we got there, all we found was sand and blood. You get your bags.
Yes, you're right. Filthy, rude, complete scoundrel, nothing to like there at all.
And I really loved the sequel as well. Did you enjoy the sequel? I didn't like the Scorpion King film, particularly the CGI was rubbish, but The Mummy Returns was just a belting action film, I thought.
The Mummy Returns has its moments for me, and then its moments where it falls apart. Like, famously, the part where they introduce the Scorpion King has some of the worst computer effects, like, ever put to screen. And I think they got done 2 days before the film was due to be released, famously, as well. My favourite, though, is, I think, as they kill Dwayne Johnson in the sequel, Arnold Vosloo lets out the single greatest exclamation for my money in the history of cinema. If you ever get the chance to see it, think of me.
Marvellous stuff. And if you get the chance, watch a film that's my recommendation tonight. It's on the Horror Channel, 10 p.m. It's 40 years old this year, unbelievably. Oof. And it itself was a remake of we're never far from Howard Hawks on this, not from Howard Hawks' 1951 horror film, The Thing from Another World. It is, of course, I think John Carpenter's finest hour, and there have been loads of them. It's The Thing, Kurt Russell, and this weird alien shape-shifting creature that was frozen in the ice and then accidentally revived and can hide inside a human being, and then emerges this horrible, mutant, special effects heavy, terrifying thing. I mean, this is a funny film, also a disturbing film, and also, I would say, a great film, and also a marvellous kind of capturing of what it must be like to be in the middle of Antarctica, paranoid about your fellow people. One of them is an alien who's going to kill you the moment you turn up. You can't even trust the dogs in this film, can you, Van?
You really can't. You can't trust the dogs. You can't trust Wilfred Brimley. You can't even trust David Keith. What is the world coming to?
And, of course, it's one of the few films from the modern era, and it's a modern film, with absolutely no women in it, when you think about it. Not a single female, unless, of course, The Thing itself is a female thing. Anyway, I'm going to play you the trailer. It's a cracking film. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's from 1982. It's The Thing, 10 p.m, horror. Be horrified.
12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it or hear it or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
And now a film that I thoroughly enjoyed, knowing very little about it, on your recommendation, Van Connor, of course on the way. It's Daniel Craig, not as James Bond, but it's a kind of weird Hercule Poirot type detective from the deep south of America. Tell us about Knives Out, which is your choice tonight on Channel 4, 9 p.m. Oh, sorry, tomorrow night, Saturday night, Channel 4, 9 p.m.
Well, Knives Out is one of my favourite movies of the last few years, full stop. His super sleuth, incidentally, is named Benoit Blanc.
Of course he is.
And he's the man who solves it all with a southern drawl, and he is called to the estate of a recently deceased murder mystery author, Harlan Trombley, played by Christopher Plummer, and his death is under mysterious circumstances. And as the proceedings begin for his funeral and the settling his estate, Benoit Blanc is hired. This famous private eye, is hired a mysterious, unknown client to investigate who amongst his family, who in his inner circle, with the most to gain, could possibly have offed the murder mystery author. It's an absolute belter. You're right, there's not only a sequel, there's two of them coming. Netflix paid $500 million for the privilege of making those two sequels. They've just finished the first one in Greece, I think, so that's coming later this year. This got nominated, I think, for Best Original Screenplay. Didn't win, sadly. I think it very much deserved to, though. For my money, one of the best movies of the last few years. Hell of a cast.
Yeah.
Great fun performance from Daniel Craig. I had odds on him being a dark horse. You know, that dark horse comedy genre Oscar contender that they like to put forward every year?
Yeah, yeah.
You know that one random year where they give, like, Johnny Depp an Oscar nom for Pirates, and they give Robert Downey Jr. an Oscar nom for Tropic Thunder. I had odds on Daniel Craig getting a dark horse Oscar nom. It didn't happen, but I could see it potentially happening for him with something like this down the line. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely worth checking out. And I've got a clip for you. Like you say, this is on tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Film 4. Great movie for a Saturday night. Agatha Christie for the next generation. I've got a clip for you of Daniel Craig laying out his suspects.
Thank you all for getting together like this. It isn't legally necessary, but I thought because you're all in town and some of you are leaving soon.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to gently request that you all stay in town until the investigation is completed.
Well, he's gently requesting, but I'm going to have to make that an order. No one move until we figure this all out.
What? Can we ask why? Has something changed?
No.
No, it hasn't changed, or no, we can't ask?
Mr. Stevens, you may continue.
It's truly a great film, folks, Knives Out. If you've not seen it, do yourself a favour. I must say, compared to... I don't mind Ken Branagh as Hercule Poirot, but that looks a bit waxworky compared to this. You're absolutely right. It's Agatha Christie for the new millennium. Fantastic stuff there. Now, my film is one of my favourites. It's directed by that great director, Martin, who works a lot with the star Paul Newman. Also stars Patricia Neal, who became Mrs. Roald Dahl, but did win an Oscar for this. And it's called HUD. It's a modern western, and it's based on a brilliant novel called Horseman Pass By Larry McMurtry, who Hollywood loves because he also wrote The Last Picture Show in terms of endearment as novels. This book was his first book when he was only 25 years old, and it's a modern western in that it's a cowboy whose father adheres to the old codes of the West and honour and being upright and standing up for your fellow man. HUD, played by Paul Newman, is a kind of horrible, modern, exploitative, womanising chancer who wants to keep secret the fact that some of their herd has got this terrible foot and mouth type ailment. It's a real kind of moral quandary film, some great bar fights in it, some great kind of modern rodeo type action. I just love this movie. Brilliant performances, very much of its time, but at this time it's regarded as being very daring indeed, because Paul Newman's character makes no secret of having endless dalliances, often with married women. Have you seen this one recently, Fan?
I haven't seen it recently. I did watch it once upon a time, because it's funny when you say the bar fights. I always remember the bar fights in this. But yes, the moral shades of grey that he plays in this, very much against type, I think, at the time for him.
And also it stars as his younger brother, and it's a brilliant bit of kind of referential Hollywood casting, Brandon DeWilde, who was the little boy in the film Shane. So it's like kind of, you know, the young prince of westerns has arrived with Paul Newman. It is a cracker. I really love this film. It's on the great, ! Classic channel tomorrow night, Saturday. Great classic, 9 p.m. It's HUD, and here's the trailer.
But how'd a man like you come to be a son to me?
Well, that's easy. There was no bundle left on a doorstep. Wasn't found in no bulrushes. You got the same feelings below your belt as any other man. That's how you got stuck with me for a son.
So that's my Saturday recommendation. For Sunday, I'm staying with great movies because they've kind of got a Western thing going. During the day, you can catch the likes of Silverado, great film with Kevin Kline et al. From 1985. More recent Western, but again set in the past. There's another overlooked film on great action called Will Penny, starring Charlton Heston. And you've also got Ride Lonesome, I think, turning up at some stage. And it's on, I think, Channel 5 over the weekend, a great Randolph Scott film. My recommendation, though, it won't surprise you, this fan, because you know my favourite director is Sam Peckinpah. And his first big budget film was Major Dundee. Charlton Heston campaigned for Sam to direct it. He was then kind of sorry because Sam Peckinpah was going through a particularly painful divorce. One of, I think, of about 4 or 5 he ended up having. And he was basically drunk a hell of a lot of the time. He still shot a flawed masterpiece. Some of the time Charlton Heston had to take over. And he actually threatened Sam Peckinpah on more than one occasion by riding his horse at him because he was behaving so badly to the extras. The film was then taken away by the studios, mutilated, released in about 4 different versions. It's been reconstituted. It's still not a perfect film. That'll be his next big film, The Wild Bunch, the greatest film of all time. But it's a brilliant story. It's been described as Moby Dick in the Wild West because Charlton Heston's character, Major Dundee, is desperate to track down this band of Apaches who've slaughtered lots of householders. Very graphic violence in this, of course, a foretaste of things to come. And he enlists the help of some Confederate prisoners who are going to be executed, led by Richard Harris, who doesn't bother with an American accent because, of course, he's meant to be Irish landed gentry, which is fine. And they kind of form an uneasy alliance, tracking down this killer, trying to confront the Apache chief. And on the way, of course, any moral compass they believe they had or moral superiority they have flies out the window. I mean, it's an interesting film. I would warn you, folks, it is a flawed masterpiece. It's on at 11:10 on. Now, it's on great action, I think, Sunday night. But I'll double check that. It's great action or great movies. You will not be disappointed if you're a Western fan. And I, my friends, have got the trailer.
The screen stretches to vast new horizons in the epic story of a rabble regiment, led by 2 bitter enemies, a major in blue, a captain in gray. To this day, their exploits echo in the legendary of the great Southwest. Charlton Heston, Richard Harris, Jim Hutton, James Coburn, Michael Anderson Jr., Senta Berger, Major Dundee, a legend born of savage violence.
Even the Major Dundee song was something that Sam Peckinpah absolutely hated. It was done by some kind of singing, group from the 1960s television series that was a big hit in the States. So that's my recommendation. My 2 Westerns, in fact, this weekend. You've gone, though, for a film, I must confess, for Sunday, I know absolutely nothing about. It's on BBC One, I think 11:10 Sunday night. Tell us about Long Shot.
Well, a very easy concept to sell me on, Paul, is what happened, how gorgeous a woman can a man as schlubby as Seth Rogen possibly romance? So Long Shot is a rom-com right up my alley, in which he's the schlubby speechwriter and Charlize Theron is the sort of glamorous Hillary Clinton type, if you could imagine such a thing. They enter into an unlikely romance, and it's how does he fit within her life? And more importantly, how many times can they cram the song It Must Have Been Love by Roxette into one particular soundtrack? This is just a really charming, really fun sort of rom-com. It's both of them playing to type and having a good time riffing off one another. It's got a sort of a Sandra Bullock, Ryan Reynolds kind of a vibe to it, but with a little bit more of a stoner edge. You can see this BBC One Sunday night at 11:10. This actually, I think, is also streaming generally on Netflix as well. So if you don't get a chance to catch it, you can't record it, do watch it. It is a good one. It is worth watching, and it's got a great cameo by Boyz II Men. But I've got a clip for you of Seth Rogen being charming in that very particular way that only Seth Rogen really can.
Here we go then.
But how does that work with you? Do you date?
Yeah. It's hard to keep those things alive. I mean, who wants to follow me around the world and hope I have 5 minutes to be affectionate?
Yeah.
And honestly, guys don't really want to date women who are more powerful than them. They think they do, but it's a shriveler.
Oof. Shriveler is my favorite Batman villain, though, so. You gonna ask why I'm still single?
No, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, it adds up.
Okay, Roxette, fine. Boyz II Men, okay. Why didn't they use that great ska reggae song from the 60s, Long Shot Kick the Bucket, by the Pioneers, about a horse that dies in a race and everybody loses money? We might play a burst of that before the end of our chat. Meanwhile, huge thanks to Van, Connor and Van. Remind us how we can hear you and Rebecca Perfect Bex in podcast form via your great kind of definitive one-stop shop for your movie news and showbiz news roundups. It's called Off Screen. Tell us more.
Well, as the lovely Ms. Perfect is away being the glamorous face at NFTs at Mobile World Conference, Zerafield is filling in for this week and next. You can hear us on podcast platforms from 6 a.m. Today and next Friday as well. In fact, every Friday with your 7-day guide to everything movies. This week, including a look at a movie that features a cameo from John Carpenter, would you believe? It's the Foo Fighters movie, Studio 666. We've also got Cyrano with Peter Dinklage, and a really fun Russian TV documentary called F This Job, which is like nothing else. And one I think you would enjoy, Jim Broadbent in The Duke, the story of the infamous art heist from the early 60s.
Brilliant stuff then. That's Off Screen. It is a great listen, folks. You can download it from your normal providers, I think, from this morning. And Van Connor joins us each and every Friday with his definitive Freeview guide to big movies for the weekend. And that, my friends, is a wrap.